You can be incredibly patient with someone. You can give them space. You can understand their moods. You can try not to pressure them, and they can still pull away. That's what makes dealing with an avoidant person so confusing, because after a while, you start wondering if there's something else you could have done. Maybe you needed to love them differently. Maybe you needed to give them more. But sometimes, that's not the answer. Because there's something an avoidant person can value more than being loved perfectly. The feeling that they are still free to be themselves. And once you understand that, some of their behavior starts looking very different. Number 1. They need to feel like closeness is still a choice. There's a difference between wanting someone close and feeling like you have to keep them close. An avoidant person can enjoy being with you, miss you, and genuinely care about you. But if closeness starts feeling like an obligation, something changes. Maybe you want to talk every night. Maybe you naturally want to see each other more often. Maybe you're ready to define where everything is going. None of those things are unreasonable, but if they start feeling like every step closer comes with another expectation, they may begin to retreat. And this is where you can misunderstand them. You might think they're pulling away because they don't care. But sometimes the thought in their head is closer to, I don't want to lose myself in this. That's a very different fear. They may not be running from you. They may be trying to make sure they can still hear their own thoughts while being close to you. And when they feel that they can come towards you without losing that freedom, something changes. They don't have to be pushed into closeness. They can choose it. And for someone who values independence that deeply, being able to choose you can mean much more than being expected to need you. Number 2, they notice whether you have a life that doesn't revolve around them. This can be surprisingly important. Imagine they don't reply for several hours. You don't sit there watching your phone. You go to the gym. You work. You see your friends. You continue with whatever you were already doing. Then they finally message you. Hey, what are you up to? And you answer normally. Not cold, not trying to teach them a lesson. You were simply living your life. That can feel very different from someone whose entire mood changes depending on whether they received a message. Because now, there's no invisible responsibility sitting on their shoulders. They don't have to constantly reassure you that everything is okay. They don't have to manage your emotions every time they need some distance. And they can see something important. You have a life of your own. You want them in it, but your entire sense of happiness isn't sitting in their hands. That's actually reassuring, because closeness feels different when both people can stand on their own. You aren't asking them to become your whole world. You're inviting them to share part of it. And that distinction can make a relationship feel much lighter. Number 3, they remember how you handle their need for space. This is one of the things people often overlook. Everyone talks about what happens when an avoidant person pulls away, but pay attention to what happens after they come back, because that's where they learn something about you. Suppose they disappear for a while. Eventually, they reach out again. And instead of immediately asking, why did you disappear? Why didn't you tell me? Are you losing interest? You simply talk to them. That doesn't mean you ignore your own needs. If something genuinely hurt you, you can say so. But there's a difference between communicating a boundary and making someone feel punished every time they need breathing room. If every return is followed by an emotional confrontation, they may start associating coming closer with being trapped in a difficult conversation. But if they discover that they can return and still have a normal human interaction with you, they remember that. They remember how it felt. And that matters. Because sometimes what makes someone comfortable enough to come closer isn't what you did while they were away. It's what they experienced when they came back. Number 4, they become attached to the way they feel around you, not everything you do for them. You can do a lot for someone. You can remember their favorite things. You can always be available. You can make sacrifices. You can give thoughtful gifts. And they can appreciate every bit of it without necessarily feeling emotionally safe with you. Because being cared for and feeling safe aren't always the same thing. Someone can think you're an amazing person and still struggle to let you get close. What matters is what happens when they show you something real. Maybe they admit something they're embarrassed about. Maybe they tell you they're struggling. Maybe they disagree with you. Maybe they simply have a bad day and don't feel like pretending everything is fine. What happens then? Do they feel like they have to defend themselves? Do they feel judged? Do they feel like their vulnerability has suddenly become something you'll use against them? Or can they just be human around you? That's where trust starts becoming real. And you may not notice when it happens. They tell you something small, then something a little more personal. Then one day you realize they've started telling you things they don't usually tell other people. That's not necessarily because you've done something extraordinary for them. It's because being emotionally exposed around you stopped feeling dangerous. And for someone who normally protects that part of themselves, that can mean a lot. Number 5, they stay where they don't feel like they're being managed. This might be the hardest one to understand, because when someone keeps pulling away, your instinct can be to figure them out. You start watching their messages, analyzing their tone, trying to understand what every little change means. You want to know what they're feeling so you can respond the right way. And before long, the relationship starts becoming a puzzle you're trying to solve. But nobody wants to feel like they're being managed, especially someone who already has a strong need for independence. You can tell them what you need. You can tell them what isn't acceptable to you. You can be honest about how their behavior affects you. But after you've said your part, you have to leave room for them to decide what they're going to do with it. That's difficult, because you can't control whether someone becomes more emotionally available. You can't convince someone to be ready. And you can't love someone into giving you something they're not prepared to give. At some point, their behavior has to speak for itself. And that's actually where your own strength comes in. You can care about somebody deeply without making their emotional availability your responsibility. You can give them room without waiting forever. You can understand why they pull away without accepting behavior that hurts you. And you can love someone without disappearing inside their needs. Because maybe that's what an avoidant person is really looking for. Not someone who proves they'll tolerate anything, not someone who keeps chasing every time they retreat, and not someone who constantly tries to convince them that closeness is safe, but someone who can stand beside them without trying to control them. Someone who says in their own way, "You don't have to lose yourself to be close to me." And there's something powerful about that. Because when someone finally realizes they can be close to you and still remain themselves, they don't have to run from the relationship just to feel free again. They can stay. Not because you gave them everything, not because you convinced them, not because you chased them until they finally gave in, but because being with you doesn't feel like losing themselves. And maybe that's the one thing an avoidant person is more loyal to than anything else, their sense of freedom. If being close to you allows them to keep that, then for the first time, staying doesn't feel like giving something up. It feels like something they chose.